Story 1. I work as a Transportation Security Administration officer at one of the busiest airports in the country. Been doing this job for about 6 years now, and let me tell you, I've seen it all. Started this career after my military service ended, thinking airport security would be straightforward work. Boy, was I wrong. Every day brings new challenges, but nothing prepared me for what happened last Tuesday. I'd been working the morning shift, and it was particularly busy that day. Holiday season was approaching, so the lines were longer than usual. My supervisor had assigned me to the priority lane, which handles first-class passengers, frequent flyers, and people with special needs. Usually, this lane moves faster, but entitled passengers sometimes make it the most stressful spot to work. Around 10 a.m., I noticed a woman approaching my checkpoint. She was dragging an expensive-looking suitcase and carrying what appeared to be a designer handbag. Her outfit screamed money. Everything from her shoes to her jewelry looked like it cost more than my monthly salary. She walked straight past the entire line of waiting passengers and marched directly to my station. "Karen, excuse me, I need to get through immediately." "Me, ma'am, you'll need to wait in line like everyone else. The priority line starts back there." "Karen, you don't understand. I'm practically royalty. I shouldn't have to wait with these common people." I blinked twice, thinking I'd misheard her. In my 6 years on the job, I'd heard some wild excuses, but this was a new one. "Me, I'm sorry, but everyone needs to go through the same security process. Please join the line." "Karen, do you know who I am?" "My husband owns 3 companies. I fly first class everywhere. I have connections with airport management." "Me, that's great, ma'am, but security procedures apply to everyone equally. Please step to the back of the line." At this point, other passengers were starting to stare. Some were pulling out their phones, probably sensing drama was about to unfold. Karen's face was turning red, and her voice was getting louder. "Karen, this is absolutely ridiculous. I have a very important meeting in Chicago. I cannot be late because some minimum wage worker doesn't understand how things work." The minimum wage comment stung, but I kept my professional composure. My supervisor had trained us well for situations like this. "Me, ma'am, I'm going to need you to lower your voice and join the line, or I'll have to call security." "Karen, call security. I am security. My tax dollars pay your salary. You work for me." She then did something that made my jaw drop. She physically pushed past me and started walking toward the metal detector. The other passengers in line gasped, and my colleague at the X-ray machine looked up in shock. "Me, ma'am, stop. You cannot proceed without going through proper screening." But Karen wasn't listening. She was already placing her designer bag on the conveyor belt and attempting to walk through the metal detector without removing her shoes, jewelry, or jacket. The machine immediately started beeping. My colleague operating the X-ray scanner suddenly called out urgently, "Colleague, we've got a problem here. This bag needs immediate inspection." I quickly pressed the alarm button, which triggered our security protocol. Within seconds, the entire checkpoint area was filled with additional officers. The metal detector area was cordoned off, and all passenger screening came to a complete halt. "Karen, what is going on? Why are you people making such a big deal about this?" Senior Supervisor: "Ma'am, your bag has triggered our security system. We need to conduct a thorough inspection." "Karen, that's impossible. It's a $5,000 bag. It only contains my personal items." What happened next was like something out of a movie. As my colleagues opened her bag for inspection, they discovered several items that should have been declared or packed differently. There were large bottles of expensive perfume, a collection of metal decorative items, and what appeared to be some kind of electronic device that wasn't immediately recognizable. Senior Supervisor: "Ma'am, we're going to need to conduct a full secondary screening. Please step aside." "Karen, secondary screening? I absolutely refuse. This is harassment. I'm going to sue this entire airport." "Karen, you people have no idea what you're dealing with. My lawyer will hear about this. I'll have all your jobs." But the security protocols were already in motion. The checkpoint remained closed while they conducted their investigation. Other passengers were being redirected to different screening areas, causing delays throughout the terminal. 2 female officers arrived to conduct the pat-down procedure. Karen continued screaming throughout the entire process. "Karen, this is assault. I'm being violated. Someone record this. I'm calling the news. Karen, my husband will destroy this place. We have connections everywhere. You're all going to regret this." The secondary screening took nearly 40 minutes. During this time, Karen's flight departure time came and went. When the officers finally cleared her belongings, she realized she'd missed her connection. "Karen, you idiots made me miss my flight. This is all your fault. I demand you get me on the next flight immediately. Senior Supervisor, ma'am, rebooking flights isn't our responsibility. You'll need to contact your airline." "Karen, I'm not going anywhere until someone fixes this mess. I want to speak to the airport director right now." At this point, Karen had been causing a scene for over an hour. Her screaming had attracted quite a crowd, and several passengers had indeed been recording the entire incident on their phones. Airport Security Manager, "Ma'am, you need to leave the secure area immediately. Your behavior is disruptive to airport operations." "Karen, I'm not leaving. You people destroyed my travel plans. I want compensation. I want apologies. I want everyone involved fired." The security manager made a gesture, and 2 airport police officers appeared. They'd been waiting nearby, monitoring the situation. "Police officer, ma'am, you're being asked to leave voluntarily. If you refuse, we'll have to escort you out." "Karen, you can't make me leave. I have rights. I'm a paying customer. This is America." But her protests were falling on deaf ears. The police officers, trained in dealing with disruptive passengers, calmly but firmly guided her toward the exit. As they walked her out, Karen continued her tirade. "Karen, this isn't over. I'm calling my lawyer. I'm calling the news. Everyone will know how terribly I was treated here. Karen, you'll all be hearing from my attorney. I'll own this airport when I'm done with you." The last thing we heard as the elevator doors closed was her shouting something about contacting the mayor and the governor. After she was gone, my supervisor came over to check on me. "Supervisor, you handled that perfectly. Some people think money gives them the right to ignore rules and treat others badly." The checkpoint reopened about 20 minutes later. Several passengers who had witnessed the entire incident came up to me afterward. "Passenger, thank you for staying professional through all that. She was completely out of line." Another passenger, "I got the whole thing on video. If she tries to sue, you've got witnesses." Later that day, I learned from my supervisor that Karen had indeed tried to file complaints with airport management and had threatened legal action. However, the security cameras had recorded everything, and her behavior was clearly documented. The best part? 3 days later, one of my colleagues showed me a local news article. Apparently, someone had posted the video online, and it had gone viral. The headline read, entitled "Passenger Claims She's Practically Royalty, Causes Airport Security Lockdown." Karen's face was clearly visible in the footage, and the internet had done what it does best, made her famous for all the wrong reasons. The article mentioned that her husband's companies were facing some negative publicity due to his wife's behavior, and several people had identified her from the video. The comments section was brutal, but fair, people calling out her entitled attitude and praising the airport staff for handling the situation professionally. I never saw Karen again, but I heard through airport gossip that she'd been placed on some kind of watch list for disruptive passengers. Apparently, her threats about having connections and influence didn't amount to much when faced with actual consequences for her actions. That incident reminded me why I chose this job. Sure, the pay could be better, and dealing with difficult people is challenging, but maintaining airport security is important work. Everyone deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of their bank account or social status. Karen learned that lesson the hard way, broadcast to millions of people online. Story 2. I've been working as an ICU nurse for 8 years now, and I thought I'd seen everything. People handle grief differently, and hospital environments can bring out the worst in some folks. But nothing prepared me for what happened last Tuesday. I was finishing up my shift when I heard shouting from the main corridor. Our unit is usually pretty quiet except for the constant beeping of machines, so any loud noise immediately gets our attention. I rushed toward the commotion and found a woman in her 40s standing outside room 314, yelling at our security guard. Let me give you some background first. The patient in room 314 had been with us for 3 days following a massive heart attack. His wife had been by his side almost constantly, along with their 2 teenage kids. They were a close family, and you could see how much they loved him. The wife barely left to eat or sleep, and the kids took turns holding his hand and talking to him, even though he was unconscious. The woman causing the scene was someone I'd never seen before. She had bleached blonde hair, wore way too much makeup for a hospital visit, and was dressed like she was going to a nightclub rather than visiting someone in intensive care. Karen, let me through right now. I have every right to be here. Security guard, ma'am, only immediate family members are allowed in the ICU. I need to see some identification and proof of relationship. Karen, I don't need to prove anything to you. I've known him longer than anyone in there. That's when the patient's wife appeared in the doorway. She looked exhausted and confused. Wife, what's going on out here? Karen, finally, tell this idiot who I am. I need to see him right now. Wife, I'm sorry, but I don't know who you are. Karen, are you kidding me? I'm his girlfriend. Well, ex-girlfriend, but we have history. I heard about the accident and came as soon as I could. The wife's face went pale. I could see her trying to process what she was hearing. Wife, there must be some mistake. We've been married for 18 years. Karen, oh please, spare me the act. Everyone knows marriages like yours are just for show. He told me all about how unhappy he was. At this point, I had to step in. The wife was clearly devastated, and the last thing she needed was this drama while her husband was fighting for his life. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice. This is a hospital, and there are other patients who need rest. Karen, don't tell me what to do. I'm not leaving until I see him. I know my rights. Your rights don't include disrupting a medical facility. If you're not immediate family, you'll need permission from the patient's wife to visit. Karen, she's not his real family. I am. We dated for 3 months last year, and that means something. That's when it clicked. 3 months. This woman was talking about a brief relationship that happened over a year ago, and she was acting like it gave her more rights than his wife and children. The wife started crying, and her teenage daughter came out to see what was happening. Daughter, Mom, what's wrong? Is Dad okay? Karen, oh great, the fake family is all here. Listen, sweetie, your mom has been lying to you about your father. He was planning to leave her for me. The daughter looked shocked and angry. Daughter, you're crazy. My parents love each other. Karen, that's what they want you to think. Your dad was miserable. He told me he was only staying for the kids. I'd heard enough. I called for additional security while trying to de-escalate the situation. Ma'am, you need to leave immediately. You're causing distress to a grieving family. Karen, I'm not leaving. If he dies, I need to say goodbye. We had unfinished business. Wife, please, just go. We're going through enough right now. Karen, you don't get to kick me out. I'm going in there whether you like it or not. She tried to push past the security guard, but he blocked her path. That's when she completely lost it. Karen, this is ridiculous. He's probably not even that sick. You people are probably faking it for attention or insurance money. The accusation was so outrageous that everyone just stared at her for a moment. Karen, I bet if I unplug a few of those machines, he'll wake right up and tell you all the truth. She actually started moving toward the room, and that's when I knew we had a serious problem. I immediately hit the emergency button to call for more help. Security, I need backup in ICU room 314 immediately. We have someone trying to interfere with life support equipment." 2 more security guards arrived within minutes. Karen was still trying to get into the room, claiming she needed to expose the truth. "Karen, you can't stop me. I know he's faking. Rich people do this all the time for sympathy." The patient's son had come out by now, and he was furious. "Son, get away from our dad. You're insane." "Karen, your dad would want to see me, not you ungrateful brats." Security guard, "Ma'am, you're under arrest for attempted interference with medical equipment and disturbing the peace." "Karen, you can't arrest me. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm the victim here." As they were restraining her, she kept screaming about how everyone was conspiring against her and how the patient had promised to leave his family for her. The hospital administrator arrived just as they were escorting Karen out. She was screaming threats about suing everyone and claiming discrimination. "Karen, this isn't over. I'll be back. You can't keep me away from him." Administrator, "Ma'am, you are hereby banned from this hospital indefinitely. If you attempt to return, you will be arrested for trespassing." "Karen, you'll all be sorry when the truth comes out." After she was gone, I spent time with the family helping them process what had just happened. The wife was devastated, wondering if there was any truth to what Karen had said. The kids were angry and confused. In my experience, people who are truly close to patients don't have to force their way in or threaten medical equipment. The people who matter are already here. Wife, but what if he really was unhappy? What if I didn't know him as well as I thought? Daughter, Mom, remember Dad's surprise party last month? He spent weeks planning it because he wanted to show you how much he loved you. That crazy lady is just delusional. The next day, I learned more about Karen from our social worker. Apparently, she had briefly dated the patient over a year ago, but he had ended things when he realized she was unstable. She had been stalking him on social media ever since, creating elaborate fantasies about their relationship. The patient woke up 2 days later. When his wife told him about Karen's visit, he was horrified and immediately called the police to report her for harassment. It turns out she had been sending him messages for months, which he had been deleting without telling his family because he didn't want to worry them. Karen tried to return to the hospital twice more but was arrested both times. She's now facing charges for stalking, harassment, and attempted interference with medical equipment. The patient made a full recovery and went home with his family. Before he left, he thanked me for protecting them during one of the worst moments of their lives. His wife gave me a hug and said she was grateful that there were people like me who understood what real family looks like. As for Karen, I heard through the grapevine that she's been banned from 2 other hospitals in the area for similar incidents. Apparently, she has a pattern of inserting herself into other people's tragedies and claiming relationships that never existed. Some people really have no shame. Story 3. A little background about me. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. My parents worked double shifts for years to save up enough money to help me with tuition. I got accepted to a decent state university about 3 hours from home, and I was beyond excited. The dorm assignment process was pretty standard. Freshmen got paired up randomly, and I ended up with a roommate who seemed cool enough from our brief phone conversation before school started. My roommate and I had been living together for about 2 months when this whole mess went down. We had gotten pretty comfortable with our setup. Our room was on the 3rd floor of one of the newer residence halls, and while it wasn't huge, it was definitely one of the better freshman dorms on campus. We each had our own desk, bed, and dresser, plus we shared a decent-sized closet. Nothing fancy, but it worked for us. The trouble started on a Thursday afternoon in October. I had just finished my chemistry lab and was heading back to my room to grab my textbook before my next class. When I got to my floor, I noticed the door to my room was wide open, which was weird because my roommate had an afternoon class too. I walked in and froze. There was a woman I'd never seen before going through my dresser drawers and throwing my clothes into garbage bags. She was probably in her late 40s, wearing expensive-looking yoga pants, and had that haircut that screams, "I want to speak to your manager." Me, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" She barely looked up from ransacking my stuff. Karen, "Oh good, you must be one of the girls who's been squatting in my daughter's room. You need to pack up your things and leave immediately." I stood there completely confused. This lady was acting like she owned the place. Me, "I'm sorry, but this is my room. I live here." "Who are you?" Karen, "I'm the mother of a sophomore who deserves better accommodations than the shoebox they stuck her in. This room is clearly meant for upperclassmen, and you freshmen have no business being here." She continued throwing my belongings into bags like I wasn't even there. My laptop, my textbooks, even my pillow, everything was getting tossed around like garbage. Me, "You can't just come in here and take my stuff. This room was assigned to me by the housing office." Karen, "Well, I'm reassigning it. My daughter has been on the waiting list for a room upgrade for weeks, and it's ridiculous that freshmen get better rooms than students who've been here longer." At this point, I was getting really angry. This woman had broken into my room and was literally stealing my belongings while acting like she had every right to do it. Me, "You need to put my stuff back and leave right now, or I'm calling campus security." Karen, "Go ahead and call them. I've already spoken to the housing director about this situation, and they agreed that my daughter should have priority." I knew she was lying. The housing office doesn't just let parents break into students' rooms and reassign them. But she seemed so confident that for a second, I wondered if maybe there was some mistake with my room assignment. Just then, my roommate walked in and stopped dead in his tracks. "Roommate, what the hell is going on here?" Karen, "Perfect timing. You both need to be out of here within the hour. My daughter will be moving in this evening, and she needs time to get settled." My roommate looked at me with complete confusion, then back at Karen. "Roommate, lady, are you insane? This is our room. We've been living here for 2 months. Karen, "Not anymore. I've taken care of everything with the administration. You can pick up your new room assignments at the housing office." She had finished bagging up most of my stuff and was now working on my roommate's side of the room. She grabbed his gaming console and shoved it into a bag so roughly that I heard something crack. "Roommate, hey, that's a $200 console. You can't just throw it around like that." Karen, "You should have thought about that before you took a room that didn't belong to you." That was it. I pulled out my phone and called campus security. Karen rolled her eyes and kept packing our stuff like nothing was happening. Me, "Hi, I need security at the residence hall on Oak Street, 3rd floor, room 314. There's a woman in my room throwing out all my belongings and claiming she's reassigning it to her daughter. The dispatcher said they'd send someone right over." Karen heard the whole conversation and just shrugged. Karen, "They're going to tell you the same thing I am. My daughter has seniority, and you need to leave." While we waited for security, she actually started measuring the room with a tape measure she had in her purse. She was talking to herself about where her daughter's furniture would go and how much better the room would look once we were gone. Campus security arrived about 10 minutes later. 2 officers came up to our room and immediately asked Karen to step away from our belongings. Security officer, "Ma'am, can you explain what you're doing here?" Karen, "I'm helping my daughter move into her new room. These students were informed that they needed to vacate by today." Security officer, "And you are?" Karen, "I'm the mother of a sophomore student. My daughter submitted a room change request weeks ago, and this is the room she was assigned." The officer turned to me and my roommate. Security officer, "Is this your room?" Me, "Yes, we've been living here since August. We never got any notice about moving out." The officer asked to see our student IDs and room assignments. We both had all our paperwork showing that this was definitely our room. Then he asked Karen for her daughter's paperwork. Karen, "Well, I don't have the paperwork with me, but you can call the housing office. They'll confirm everything." Security officer, "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to stop packing these students' belongings and step outside while we sort this out." Karen, this is ridiculous. I'm trying to help my daughter get a decent place to live, and you're treating me like a criminal." The officer called the housing office right there in the hallway. We could all hear him explaining the situation. After a few minutes, he came back into the room looking pretty annoyed. Security officer, "Ma'am, the housing office has no record of any room reassignment. They also said that parents are not authorized to move students' belongings or make housing changes on behalf of their children." Karen's face went bright red. "Karen, that's impossible. I specifically spoke to someone about this yesterday." Security officer, "The housing office says they haven't spoken to you at all. They also want me to inform you that you're currently trespassing in a residence hall without permission." Karen, "Trespassing? I'm a parent. I have every right to be here." Security officer, "Actually, you don't. The residence halls are private living spaces for students only. Parents need permission from their children and the university to enter." At this point, Karen completely lost it. She started yelling about how her daughter was being discriminated against and how the university was playing favorites with freshman students. She demanded to speak to the dean and threatened to call her lawyer. The security officer was having none of it. He told her she needed to leave the building immediately, or she would be arrested for trespassing. Karen finally stopped packing our stuff, but she wasn't done yet. Karen, "Fine, but this isn't over. My daughter will be getting this room one way or another." She stormed out, leaving our belongings scattered all over the floor. Some of my clothes were wrinkled from being stuffed in garbage bags, and my roommate's gaming console had a crack in the case. We thought that was the end of it, but we were wrong. The next day, my roommate got a call from his resident advisor asking him to come to the housing office. Apparently, Karen had called the university president's office, the dean of students, and anyone else she could think of to complain about the injustice of the room assignments. When my roommate got back from the housing office, he had some pretty interesting news. Roommate, "So apparently, Karen's daughter is actually getting moved out of her current room." Me, "Wait, what?" Roommate, "Yeah, turns out Karen's little stunt yesterday got her banned from all campus buildings. The housing office said that since she created a hostile living environment by breaking into our room, they're moving her daughter to a smaller single room in the oldest dorm on campus as a disciplinary measure." I couldn't believe it. Karen's plan to get her daughter a better room had completely backfired. A few days later, I ran into Karen's daughter in the dining hall. She looked absolutely miserable and kept apologizing for what her mother had done. Apparently, Karen hadn't told her about the room invasion plan, and the daughter was horrified when she found out. She said her new room was half the size of her old one and didn't even have air conditioning. The best part, Karen tried to appeal the housing decision and ended up getting herself permanently banned from the entire campus. Her daughter had to meet her off campus for the rest of the semester whenever Karen visited. Sometimes entitled parents really do get exactly what they deserve. Story 4. I've been growing vegetables for over 15 years now. What started as a small backyard garden to feed my family turned into something bigger when neighbors started asking to buy my extra produce. My tomatoes were always the star. I spent years perfecting my soil mixture and finding the right heirloom varieties that thrived in our climate. 3 years ago, I finally got a spot at the downtown farmers market. It wasn't easy. There's a waiting list that stretches for months, and you have to prove you're actually growing what you're selling. I was thrilled when I got the call that a vendor spot had opened up. The market became my Saturday routine. I'd wake up at 4 in the morning to harvest, wash, and pack everything. By 6, I was setting up my little 10 by 10 canopy with tables full of tomatoes, peppers, herbs, and whatever else was in season. The regular customers knew me by now, and many would come straight to my stall first thing in the morning. That's when Karen showed up. She got the stall right next to mine about 6 months ago. From day one, she made it clear she thought she was special. She claimed she practiced something she called spiritual farming and insisted her vegetables had higher vibrations than everyone else's. Her prices were double what the rest of us charged, and honestly, Her produce looked pretty average. At first, I tried to be friendly. When she complained that customers were walking past her stall to get to mine, I suggested maybe she could lower her prices or improve her display. She just glared at me and muttered something about negative energy. Things got worse as the weeks went by. She would make loud comments when customers chose my tomatoes over hers. Karen, these people just don't understand quality. They're too focused on cheap food instead of spiritually blessed produce. I ignored her most of the time, but it was getting uncomfortable. Other vendors started rolling their eyes whenever she launched into one of her speeches about chakras and plant consciousness. Last Saturday started like any other. I had a beautiful display of Cherokee purples, brandywines, and green zebras, all perfectly ripe and gorgeous. The morning crowd was steady, and I was having a good day. Around 10 o'clock, Karen stormed over to my stall. Her face was red, and she was practically shaking. "Karen, this is ridiculous. You're stealing all my customers." "Me, I'm sorry, what do you mean?" "Karen, people keep buying your tomatoes instead of mine. It's not fair. I've been blessing my plants with crystal energy and moon water, and your basic tomatoes are outselling mine." "Me, well, maybe people just prefer the varieties I grow, or the price point works better for them." "Karen, no, you're doing something to interfere with my spiritual harvesting rights. This is sabotage." I had no idea what spiritual harvesting rights even meant, but before I could ask, she marched back to her stall. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. About 20 minutes later, I was helping a customer when I heard a commotion. I looked over to see Karen grabbing armfuls of my tomatoes and throwing them on the ground. "Karen, if I can't sell my blessed produce, then nobody should be able to sell inferior tomatoes." "Me, hey, stop. What are you doing?" She ignored me and kept grabbing my carefully arranged tomatoes, hurling them onto the pavement where they splattered and burst. Weeks of work were being destroyed in seconds. "Customer, oh my God, someone stop her." Other vendors started rushing over, but Karen was in full meltdown mode now. She kicked over one of my baskets, sending dozens of tomatoes rolling across the walkway. "Karen, this whole market is corrupt. You're all conspiring against me and my spiritually superior vegetables. I have rights. Spiritual harvesting rights." "Market manager, ma'am, you need to stop immediately." "Karen, I'm calling the police. This man is engaging in unfair competition and blocking my chakras." She actually pulled out her phone and dialed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Karen, yes, I need police at the downtown farmers market. There's a man here who's been sabotaging my business with his negative energy tomatoes. He's violating my spiritual harvesting rights, and I demand he be arrested." The whole scene was surreal. Other customers had stopped to stare, and I noticed several people holding up their phones, recording the whole thing. Karen was still screaming about spiritual rights and chakra interference, while my beautiful tomatoes lay crushed on the ground. The police did show up, but not for the reason Karen expected. The market manager explained the situation, and several witnesses backed up my story. The officers were professional, but clearly trying not to laugh when Karen insisted they arrest me for tomato-based spiritual warfare. "Officer, ma'am, growing tomatoes isn't illegal. Destroying someone else's property is." "Karen, but he's interfering with my aura. My vegetables are blessed by the universe." "Officer, that's not something we can help you with. You need to pay for the damages and leave the market immediately." Karen refused to pay and demanded to speak to the Spiritual Crimes Unit. The officers eventually gave her a citation for destruction of property and escorted her off the premises. But the story doesn't end there. By Sunday morning, someone had posted a video of Karen's meltdown online. The title was, "Farmers Market Karen Claims Spiritual Harvesting Rights While Destroying Tomatoes." It had thousands of views already. By Monday, it was everywhere. Local news stations picked it up. Then it spread to social media. Spiritual harvesting rights became a meme. People were making jokes about chakra tomatoes and blessed vegetables. The market manager called me Tuesday morning. "Manager, I wanted to let you know that we've permanently banned her from selling here. We also heard from several other markets in the area. Apparently, this isn't the first time she's caused problems." The best part came on Friday. A local food blogger who had seen the video came by my farm. She wrote a beautiful piece about my growing methods and family farm history. Orders started pouring in through my website. This Saturday, I sold out of tomatoes by noon. Customers kept coming by asking if I was the tomato guy from the viral video. Instead of hurting my business, Karen's tantrum had made me the most popular vendor at the market. I heard through the grapevine that she tried to set up at another market across town, but they had already seen the video and declined her application. Apparently, she's now selling her spiritually blessed vegetables from her front yard, but I doubt she's getting much traffic. As I packed up my empty tables last Saturday, I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best way to deal with entitled people is to just let them expose themselves. My tomatoes speak for themselves, no spiritual harvesting rites required. Story 5. I've been working as a guest services coordinator on cruise ships for 8 years now. Started right after college when I couldn't find a decent job on land and figured traveling the world while working might be better than sitting in some cubicle. The pay isn't amazing, but I get to see incredible places and meet people from all walks of life. Most passengers are wonderful, excited families, couples celebrating anniversaries, retirees finally taking that dream vacation. But every now and then, you get someone who thinks the entire ship revolves around them. This particular incident happened during our 7-day Caribbean cruise. We just left our third port of call, a beautiful little island where passengers had spent the day shopping, snorkeling, and exploring local markets. I was manning the guest services desk around 6 p.m. when this woman came storming up to me, dragging a kid who looked about 10 years old behind her. "Karen, I need to speak to whoever's in charge right now." The kid looked embarrassed, trying to pull away from his mother's grip. I put on my professional smile. "Me, I'm the guest services coordinator. How can I help you today?" "Karen, we need this ship to turn around immediately. My son left his tablet at that last port, and we have to go back for it." I blinked, thinking I'd misheard her. "Me, I'm sorry, but the ship has already departed. We're currently en route to our next destination. Perhaps I can help you contact the port authorities to see if—" "Karen, no, you don't understand. That tablet cost me $800, and it has all his games and movies on it. He can't enjoy the rest of this cruise without it. I demand you turn this ship around right now." The kid tugged on her arm. "Son, Mom, it's okay. I can use the game room or watch TV in the cabin." "Karen, no, sweetie. Mommy paid good money for this cruise, and you deserve to have your tablet. This lady is going to fix this for us." I explained that cruise ships operate on strict schedules with port reservations, fuel calculations, and hundreds of other passengers to consider. Turning around wasn't possible, but I offered to help her file a claim with her travel insurance or contact the port to arrange shipping if the tablet was found. "Karen, this is ridiculous. I paid $15,000 for this cruise, and you're telling me you won't go back for one little tablet. I want to speak to the captain immediately." "Me, ma'am, the captain is currently navigating the ship, but I can arrange for you to speak with the hotel director tomorrow morning." "Karen, tomorrow morning? No, this needs to be handled now. Call him down here." I politely explained that wasn't how things worked, but I could take her information and have someone from management contact her within the hour. She wasn't having it. "Karen, fine. If you won't get the captain, I'll get him myself." She marched off toward the elevators, her son trailing behind and apologizing to me with his eyes. I made notes in our system about the interaction and figured that would be the end of it. I was wrong. About an hour later, our security officer approached my desk looking grim. "Security officer, we've got a situation. That woman who was here earlier just pulled the emergency alarm on deck 12 claiming there was a fire." My heart sank. False emergency alarms are serious business on cruise ships. Me, is everything okay? Security officer, there's no fire. She told the crew that responded that she knew it was the only way to get the captain's attention. She's demanding to speak with him about turning the ship around. Within minutes, I watched as Karen was escorted through the atrium in handcuffs, still shouting about her son's tablet and how this was all a misunderstanding. The kid was crying now, being comforted by what appeared to be his grandmother who'd been traveling with them. The captain did speak with her eventually in the ship's holding cell. I learned later from security that she'd been charged with making a false emergency report, which is a federal offense on international waters. She spent the next 2 nights in the brig while the ship's legal team sorted everything out. For the remainder of the cruise, Karen was allowed out of her cabin only for meals and bathroom breaks, always with a security escort. She couldn't use any of the ship's amenities, couldn't participate in activities, and had to eat at a designated table away from other passengers. The kid spent most of his time with his grandmother, who seemed mortified by her daughter's behavior. On the final day, I overheard a conversation between the grandmother and another passenger in the elevator. "Grandmother, I'm so embarrassed. I tried to teach her better than this, but she's always thought the world should bend to her will. That poor boy deserves so much better." Other passenger, "At least he has you to show him the right way to behave." "Grandmother, I've already called his father. He's picking him up at the port, and I think it's time for some serious custody discussions." When we docked, Karen was among the first passengers off the ship, escorted by port authorities who were waiting to process her case. She was facing potential fines, legal proceedings, and a permanent ban from the cruise line. The kid hugged his grandmother goodbye at the terminal, then walked away with his father without looking back at his mother. Later that afternoon, I saw him and his dad boarding a flight home, while Karen was still stuck dealing with paperwork and legal issues at the port. Sometimes I wonder if she ever realized that her $800 tablet tantrum ended up costing her thousands in legal fees and potentially her relationship with her son. But knowing people like her, she probably found a way to blame everyone else for the consequences of her actions. The grandmother sent us a thank you card a few weeks later, apologizing for her daughter's behavior and praising our crew's professionalism during the incident. She mentioned that her grandson was doing well and had actually enjoyed the parts of the cruise where his mother wasn't around to cause drama. That's the thing about working in customer service, you learn pretty quickly that some people think money gives them the right to make unreasonable demands. But on a cruise ship in international waters, even the most entitled passenger has to follow the same rules as everyone else. The ocean doesn't care how much you paid for your vacation.